All right, we're going to start with Lori. Lori, your pokes are in a really nice spot on your body up near your hip. Now take a look at your upper elbow here. Notice that there's a little bit of a push down with your elbow. That's probably going to be, it looks a little injure worthy. So maybe focus on keeping that top arm completely strong and watching them minimize some of the extra movement in your joints. Otherwise, you're staying really in time. Nice change on that. And it looks like you're staying in the water and paddling probably 75%. So nice job. I think you could probably add a little bit more practice on 45-degree draws so that you're doing a little bit more paddling. Okay, we're going to go to Anita. So Anita, you came to us from an Amazon stroke, and what I like about your body is that you can tell that your body is on the stroke. So I want to slow this down. Notice how Anita is doing the lock. You can tell that her shoulders are stacked. You can tell those lats are working, and then watch as Anita enters the water. That is a lock. This is a perfect stroke right here. You can tell her upper elbow has a slight bend in it, but it's not coming back into a rhino. And all of that first entry into the water is initiated by that lower lat. Nice, Anita. All right, we're going to look at Kristen here. So it's a nice strong stroke. What I'd like to do though is slow us down. So we have a nice flat back, the plant, and the recovery. And this looks pretty linear. It's a pretty angular front and back motion. Sometimes I describe having a little bit more of a jelly bean experience to your stroke, where there's a little bit of roundness in the front and a little bit of roundness in the back. As you can see in right here, yeah. So you come to a paddles up position in the air, pause, and then go in. So if you can round out that front by thinking about that hill of the recovery, and that olive right there should be when you enter the water. I'll try to say it again. Enter the water. So that you enter the water before you've finished your forward movement. I think that'll help round out your stroke. Okay, we are going to focus in on Jennifer now, once this switches over. Okay. So first thing I notice is that your hand is about 3 hand lengths up your shaft. I am not sure if that's because your paddle is too long, but you definitely want your hand to be down another hand's width at least. So I can tell that you've definitely been working on the lock. Your stroke has changed a lot since our first video. And you are keeping your shoulders stacked, and you can really see you trying to be intentional on that lock. Right, so there isn't a ton of air pause as you enter the water. Nice. One thing I could say for your next steps is working on the load, which is the next part of it. So right after you get that lock, put that load on your top arm. You can tell how you have a little bit of a pendulum swing with your paddle. A little bit is natural, but I think that with a little bit more load and that downward pressure of that top arm, working on that feeling of sitting up and pulling yourself towards your paddle, you're going to feel a lot more catch in the water and ultimately will be stronger. P.S. Just watching your switch over, you switch over with your head down, so you may want to think about sitting up a little bit more as you switch. Okay, we are going to go to K-Day. So it's nice that we have the trees along the horizon. K-Day, take a look at your head in relationship to the trees and notice how much you dive. I'm trying to see a good comparison. Your head versus Kristen's head. So you got a little bit more of a dive than you do a lock right now. So a way to work on that is to think about lengthening through your ribs, pulling those lats down before you enter the water, and then really trying to focus in on the feeling of your lat initiating as you enter the water. I sometimes feel lengthening through the front of my core as I feel it enter, and that might keep your head and your body from pouncing as much. Otherwise, you have a nice upright position. Your top arm is really strong. It's got the perfect bend in the elbow. And if we can get you on the other side here. One thing that I think is really going to help you is notice how your hand is down near the shaft. If you bring that up one hand, you'll be able to get a little bit more of a lock without having to reach for it as much as you're doing, and that'll likely take out your dive and help time you up. The last bit I would say is watch your paddle in relationship to Kristen's. You initiate at the same time, but you come back farther, and then you get stuck a little bit in the back. You can see it in your shoulder. So again, you're sitting up with that inner core, and maybe practice a little bit of D-stroke to try to get that shoulder from getting caught in the back. All right, Alexis. So right away, we can see that you concentrate very hard and you have a forward back, very linear motion. You can see it in that snapped forward elbow that almost hyperextends. And then you snap it up into the air, right? Whoop, there it is. And it has a pause. Whoop. So what I'd like you to do is to round more. Again, take a look at Anita's clip and watch how Anita's blade enters the water. Right here you'll go in. Here you go in. What that will also do is, I think another thing that will help is having your body feel a little bit more relaxed. So again, take a look at Anita's body and how there's a softness to the entry and exit of it. Right here. Yeah, the end of your stroke is also pretty angular. Soft. Soft. Basically, I want you to stop thinking so hard. I know that you think a lot. And start feeling your body being soft throughout. I think might help some of the angularity turn into a jelly bean. Okay, we're going to look at Bren's stroke with a steer blade. So it's going to be a little bit different. First, Bren, take a look at that elbow. The bottom elbow is doing some hyperextension, which leads to some shoulder jutting forward. We talked a little bit about your pokes. I'm going to guess that's why your elbow hurts sometimes, is that a hyperextension. You know the drill. It'll be more of a feeling of a lat extension rather than an elbow or shoulder. So in order to feel that, you may feel like you're not reaching as far. And then take a look at your stroke versus Anna and Carol's. You're coming back a little bit farther and you're going a little bit more negative. And I don't know if that's because of this blade. But it is making me think that it's because that front entry is still a little bit in the air with a pause rather than a smooth entry forward. So that might be just something you want to work on a little bit more. Okay, we're going to go to Kelly. Sorry I don't have you on the right side yet. So let's take a look at when you enter and exit the water in comparison to Carol. So you're in time, but your band of pull appears to be a little bit shorter than Carol's, and I believe you're both similar sizes. What I'm going to guess that is that you could give a little bit more rotation from your hip, and then a connection of a lat, like that lower arm's lat as it enters in the water, so that it goes into the water with a forward motion. If you can get that, you also pull back farther, or you pull back in more of a pendulum than Carol does, so that your blade is going negative pretty much from the outset. What we would want to see is more of that lock catch of water at the front so that your blade feels that much harder to pull through the water. What that's going to do is it's going to slow your blade down. Okay, let's take a look at it here. So watch yourself in comparison to Mindy. You are already negative here. And we're going to watch one more stroke. So you're much more negative than Mindy as you come back. And then you lift up out of the water with your lower arm. So that's a choo-choo train. Okay, so here if you got a full plant, you would still be positive here, but instead you're already negative. So in a way, your recovery looks more like a circle where you're coming up, over, and down here. So it's more of an upright oval. I want that to be much more forward here, in, back, up slightly forward. So more of a jelly bean rather than an upright oval. Okay, Carol. So one thing I would offer is that it's looking like your setup is still about 3 inches off the water and you have still a slight little pause at the front. You may want to head out on your one just to practice getting that lock at the front. I think that there's just a little bit more you could grab up front. And if everybody could take a look at how Carol's body pulls the blade back, you can tell that there is a body pulling a blade rather than an arm pulling a blade, which is what the pendulum looks like. And what I would wonder, this is a bad angle for this, but Carol, you might want to check whether your lower shoulder is pulling back farther than square. I can't tell if that's true or not. Okay, we're going to look at Jen. Sorry, we're going to skip forward. Right, Jen, your hand placements and your upper arm, your lower elbow all look lovely. I think what I'd like to see, I can see both, there's this hiccup at the front where you kind of like sit up to recover, and then you also sit back to 90 degrees at the end of your recovery. So in a way, I'd like you to keep a 5% lean more than what you feel like you're doing. So lean 5% more than you think you are. Be sure not to do that with your shoulder, but with your rotation. Yeah, see how you can see your other shoulder as you pull back? It means that you're coming back just like and sitting up a little bit too much. So with that 5-degree lean forward, I hope that will help you also take out the pause at the front, and so that the last bit of your recovery will be down into the water here. So down into the water. Down into the water. Otherwise, nice job. Okay, Anne. So both Bren and I agree that your blade is probably 2 inches too long. And until we get you on a shorter blade, I don't know how much of this we can really critique on. What I love about your stroke is you go into the water just like I want everybody to. Notice how there is very little pause. You're setting up only about an inch above the water. And you're hitting it with your lat. It's a definite perfect lock. I also like how long you stay in the water. I can tell that you are grabbing a lot of water, but I think a shorter blade is going to help you exit. With that long of a blade, you're getting stuck in the back and are exiting longer. It takes longer than anybody else in the boat. I think in general that'll also help your body stay upright. You tend to have a little bit of a hunch when you get tired. So maybe at some practice you can use one of my blades. All right, Mindy, last but not least. So you can tell that your hand is probably one hand too high up your shaft. If you bring that down, some of your technique things might even out. Just take a look at your body, how there's this like fake sit-up right at the end, and then there's a shrinkage. I think your ribs are doing an expansion and a collapse. That might be a somatic cheat that is making you feel like you're doing something, but it doesn't actually do much for power in your stroke. So the other piece is that whiff that I was talking to you about. Just take a look at the bandwidth of your stroke. The strongest bit you have is after your plant, right before the middle of your stroke. The rest of your stroke is pretty much not pulling water. And so you have a pretty small band of power. I can tell that you're reaching a little bit more just there. But what we'll want to work on is a little bit more lock in order to really grasp the water, and then how you can bring your body back like Carol's in order to keep that water on your blade as you pull your body towards the blade. Last, I just wanted to show you what your boat looked like as you picked up your rate, Jen. Most of you still can grab a little water, but I'm noticing that some of us have lost the lock, so we'll keep working on keeping the lock at this faster rate. And this timing is all about the length of your blade. This is why you need a shorter one.